The Maxson family is the closest equivalent to a royal dynasty in the post-war world of Fallout. With their founder, Roger Maxson, creating the Brotherhood of Steel, the Maxsons have been venerated throughout the centuries of the history of this continent-spanning society. So let's meet them today. First off, the founder of the dynasty, Roger Maxson, was a captain in the United States Armed Forces, having served in the resource wars that engulfed the world in the pre-war era. And although a charismatic leader, few could have predicted that he would spawn one of the most prominent post-war societies in the former United States. Captain Maxson was assigned to the Mariposa military base in California to command a military team to safeguard the scientists and research conducted at the base. Unbeknownst to Maxson and his team, however, the research conducted was with the forced evolutionary virus on test subjects that came from military prisoners of war. Maxson and his team were disgusted when they discovered the immoral test conducted, and doubly so when their interrogations revealed that it was all sanctioned by the US government. Maxson ordered the scientists to be executed, to have he and his soldiers' families brought to the base, and then declared that he was seceding from the United States. However, the US had bigger fish to fry at that time. 3 days later, on the 23rd of October 2077, the Great War broke out, and the world as he knew it ended. Maxson feared a counterstrike from China and ordered an exodus to the Lost Hills government bunker, and set out into the waste with his men and their families, including his young son and wife. The journey was harsh as the remnants of the US population had turned upon one another and led to brutal attacks on the group. Casualties were suffered, which included Roger Maxson's wife, yet he did not let these losses diminish his zeal to secure a new place for his people. The Lost Hills bunker was secured by Maxson and his soldiers and became a headquarters for the organisation that survives to this day. And it was here that Roger Maxson, espousing that the leaders of America had failed its people, declared a new order would rise to safeguard the future of humanity, a Brotherhood of Steel. Maxson declared himself as High Elder and created a new hierarchy centered on what some viewed as archaic and outdated models, such as Paladins, Elders, and Knights. However, Maxson explained that it was the Knights and Scribes that protected Western civilization after the fall of Rome, and so too would the Brotherhood in this modern age. But maybe I should let the man himself explain his thinking.
Our successors are gonna need the secrets of the past, and those secrets are in danger of slipping through our fingers forever. So far, our scribes have been tools to help protect our knights and maintain our bases. That needs to change. The Brotherhood is gonna be more than an armed fighting force. We are going to be the guardians of civilization. So we have to grab every schematic, every holotape, every book, every goddamn note that holds the building blocks of the old world before it is too late. Our scribes will hold on to them, preserve them, perhaps even progress beyond them, and the knights will protect them like a hard shell around a precious seed. And one day when the time is right, that seed will grow, and a new civilization will be born.
This goal of safeguarding humanity by securing dangerous technology became a key foundation to the Brotherhood, and one that they came to be known by over the centuries of their existence. However, Roger Maxson was also a humanitarian at heart. At odds with his commanders and even his own son, Roger Maxson sought to actively protect the people of the Waste from threats, working with them to rebuild their own societies independent from the Brotherhood, and espouse the virtues of allowing outside recruitment into their ranks. Although the Brotherhood under Roger Maxson was located in California, Maxson sought to effectively franchise the organisation across the United States. After reconnecting with Elizabeth Taggarty, Maxson taught her the importance of the Brotherhood's mission to set up an Appalachian chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel, which came to be seen in Fallout 76. High Elder Roger Maxson ruled the Brotherhood of Steel justly for 58 years, seeking to codify the ideology of this new organisation and legitimise its place in the Wasteland. And when he passed away from cancer in the year of 2135, in his 90s, he hoped that the foundation he had laid would continue past his death. However, the Brotherhood's posthumous treatment of Roger Maxson's memory can vary. Some venerate the man, ascribing godlike status to his descendants 200 years into the future, and label him as the Great Deliverer. However, in the immediate aftermath of his passing, his successors sought to shift the Brotherhood away from his humanitarian ideals, tarnishing his legacy to become an isolationist and often violent society. Even only 30 years after his passing, some initiates were quite lax with their knowledge of who Roger Maxson even was, with this trend continuing to even more recent times. Ironically, one of the factions that would venerate his legacy the most would become their most bitter enemy, the NCR. Thankful for Roger Maxson for pacifying the California Wasteland, the NCR named one of their founding states, Maxson, after the great man himself. The second High Elder of the Brotherhood of Steel, the son of Roger Maxson, is never actually referred to by his birth name, instead going by Maxson II in official sources. High Elder Maxson II never had an easy life. Born in the pre-war era of 2064, Maxson II faced all the stresses of any young person in the lead up to the Great War. A constant state of conflict between the US and China meant that the young Maxson II grew up in a world on borrowed time. One where the United States clamped down on civil liberties, demanded that citizens denounce their neighbours, and sent their young generations to their deaths in an ever-growing meat grinder of a war. Compounding this, Maxson II had a personal stake in the war, as his father, Roger Maxson, or Maxson I, served in the United States Armed Forces as a captain. From a young age, Maxson II saw his father sparingly, as his deployments into theatres of war continued to grow, until one day in his teens, when his father was appointed to secure and oversee the Mariposa military base in California. After Roger Maxson's succession from the United States, Maxson II and his mother were ordered to take refuge within the Mariposa base for their own protection. Although worried to hear that his father was, in essence, committing treason against the government, Maxson II was simply happy to be together again. This happiness was short-lived, however, with the outbreak of the Great War 2 days after. The seas boiled, nations crumbled, the world burned. And yet for young Maxson II, all of this paled in comparison to the pain he would experience in a few short days. As mentioned before, Maxson I ordered an exodus from Mariposa to set up a command at Lost Hills Bunker, and the soldiers and their families journeyed through the immediate post-war ruins of the United States. And while the soldiers were protected from threats via their power armor, the families were unfortunately not. Many casualties were confirmed, but none more devastating than the wife of Roger Maxson and the teenage Maxson II's mother. The events of his young life, the Mariposa scientist's research, the Great War, and the murder of his mother by Wastelanders hardened the younger Maxson. In his mind, all the problems he'd faced were caused by the actions of outsiders, and as such, you can never trust an outsider. Only your family, and eventually, only the Brotherhood of Steel. Maxson II committed himself to his father's new order, the Brotherhood of Steel, and served his sire with loyalty. However, he disagreed with his father's humanitarian ideals of working alongside and helping the people of the Waste, openly challenging the founder on these matters. In Maxson II's mind, the Brotherhood had a duty to safeguard humanity by protecting technology and human knowledge, which was more important to humanity's rebirth than simply saving them from the dangers of the Waste. And when his father passed in 2135, Maxson II succeeded his father as High Elder of the Brotherhood of Steel, and this isolationist policy was put in place. As an example, in 2141, a complete halt was placed on outside recruitment, with the Brotherhood's members declared to come from the offspring of its members only. Maxson II's distrust of the outside world formed an ideology that the Brotherhood would uphold for centuries to come, in spite of what their founder desired. Maxson II served ably in his role as High Elder, however he was not a man for sitting in bunkers and dictating commands via the Elder Council. He was a man of action. And at the ripe old age of 90, High Elder Maxson II led a unit of scouts to track a vicious tribal gang known as the Vipers. Clad in their power armor, Maxson II did not consider the venomous tribals to be a threat, which proved to be his undoing. In his confidence, he removed his helmet within enemy territory, all within the sights of one of the tribals, who used the opportunity to shoot a poisoned arrowhead at the Elder. Maxson II was merely nicked on the side of his head, however the toxins within the projectile caused his heart to fail within hours after making contact. Maxson II, who saw the world fall, his mother perish, and his father create a neo-knightly post-apocalyptic order, lived a storied life, filled with hardship but glory. He was succeeded in his position and legacy by his son, John Maxson. John Maxson was born in 2097, in the relatively early days of the Brotherhood of Steel's conception. The grandson of the founder of the order, Roger Maxson, John was the first of the Maxson bloodline to be born into the Brotherhood of Steel. However, he did not rely on his royal name to carry his way. John Maxson worked his way through the ranks, first as an initiate, a knight, and then to the rank of Master Knight. Within this particular role, John was exposed to the world outside of the Wasteland, going on scouting missions to the Boneyard, and forming lasting relationships with residents of the hub, becoming one of the rare Brotherhood members to view outsiders in a somewhat positive light. In the year of 2135, John was inducted at the age of 38 as a paladin, coinciding with the death of his grandfather. He excelled in this role, which led to his promotion to head paladin of the Brotherhood of Steel. As mentioned previously, John Maxson lost his father in the year of 2155 after a poisoning by a viper, and 4 years later, John was elected as High Elder Maxson III. In one of his first appointments, Paladin Rhombus was elected to replace him as head paladin, and sent on a vicious campaign of extermination against the Vipers to avenge the death of his father. We personally meet John Maxson in Fallout in the year of 2161. At 64 years of age, John is respected as High Elder, but many do consider him a bit of a maverick, if not downright crazy. He prefers to address topics in a way some consider upfront, while others find blunt and unbefitting the role of High Elder. For example, when asked about the Council of Elders, he states, "There's 4 of them, and that's about all they can ever agree on. They can't even agree if they want to piss, much less pick a pot to piss in." The office of High Elder infuriates the third Maxson, as he finds the politics tiresome and misses being out in the open field. He wishes to combat the Brotherhood's threats head on, is open to the admission of outsiders, and to end their isolationist policy. John Maxson correctly deduces that an army is massing to the north that has been killing scouts and caravans, a fact that is ultimately proven right despite the dismissals from the Council of Elders. John Maxson is described by his own troops as not liking the role of High Elder that much. He himself will admit to the player that had he known the politicking involved with the role, he never would have assumed it. John Maxson was a man of boundless skill and knowledge, but was most happy exploring the wastes, fighting the Brotherhood's enemies, and in his mind, continuing to safeguard humanity's future. John Maxson's year and cause of death is unknown. However, all that is known is that Head Paladin Rhombus established the Lost Hills Bunker as a major research and development house in New California, but keeping it outside the political struggles of the region. John Maxson evidently must have had children who went on to further his bloodline. However, no information is given on any other Maxsons until Jeremy Maxson, who was stated to be High Elder of the Brotherhood in the year 2231. However, something important to note is that Jeremy Maxson was mentioned in the cancelled Van Buren game, so is technically not considered a canon source. Nonetheless, this video is on the Maxson dynasty, and it's not outside the realm of possibility that Jeremy Maxson could have existed. High Elder Jeremy Maxson sought to expand the Brotherhood of Steel's influence in the California region, and as such he sent forces to occupy a pre-war senator's bunker in order to lay claim to a wider berth of territory. The bunker was evidently a success story, and it led to the forging of close ties with tribals that inhabited the area, despite the Brotherhood's xenophobia. Jeremy Maxson went as far to rename the bunker after his great-great-grandfather Roger Maxson, promoting the paladin in charge of the expedition to the rank of Elder in 2242. This coincided with one of the most foundational parts of the Brotherhood's history, as the war with the New California Republic broke out shortly afterwards, one in which the Brotherhood would ultimately lose and retreat to their bunkers. The next Maxson to be mentioned was the first and only recorded Maxson not to achieve the rank of Elder. Every family must have a black sheep. Nevertheless, this next Maxson, known as Jonathan Maxson, is most noteworthy for being the father to the boy who would one day become High Elder Arthur Maxson, Supreme Commander of the Brotherhood of Steel. Jonathan Maxson is recorded as being a high-ranking paladin, serving just outside the territory of the New California Republic. Jonathan evidently had found love and married a woman known as Jessica, who became known as Lady Maxson and gave birth to their son Arthur. Citadel records state that Jonathan was killed in battle outside of the NCR sometime between 2272 and 2277, although by whom or what, we have no knowledge. His wife Jessica sought to safeguard their son Arthur against external and internal threats. As despite the Maxson family's legacy to the Brotherhood, it seems that some within the organisation harboured some form of ill will towards the surviving Maxson. Another record states that recent internal conflict amongst the Western Brotherhood of Steel created an unsafe environment for the child. It was believed that the Citadel, despite being located in hostile territory, would increase his probability of survival. As such, Jonathan's son, young Arthur, was sent from California to Washington, D.C., with his wife Jessica unfortunately not outliving him much longer, recorded as having passed away prior to 2277. The current and last member of the Maxson family is High Elder Arthur Maxson, the leader of the East Coast Brotherhood of Steel contingent. First seen in Fallout 3 in 2277, Arthur is a 10-year-old squire fostered under Elder Owen Lyons at the Citadel. Squire Maxson was a timid and lonely child, given that he grew up in a strict military order with no other children of his own age. His closest friend was the inanimate robot Liberty Prime, until he was reprimanded for the futility of treating a machine as an equal, which potentially led to his opinion on synths. The adult population of the Brotherhood either paid him no attention or showed too much deference, as many claimed his soul was forged from eternal steel, due to being the last descendant of their founder Roger Maxson. However, young Arthur considered himself to just be a normal boy. The only close relationship he had was with Sentinel Sarah Lyons, who acted as a mentor to Squire Maxson, teaching him about leadership, the Brotherhood, and how to stab a man in the kidneys. This extended to taking him on training patrols, which were unfortunately ended when Squire Maxson accidentally shot Sarah. Despite his apprehensive nature, Squire Maxson does show a level of intelligence for his age when met in Fallout 3. He's learned the Codex by heart, correctly identified where the super mutant threat was most likely originating, and was able to give accurate information on the Enclave's strengths based on learned history from previous battles with the Brotherhood. After the Enclave's defeat, the Brotherhood held dominion over the region. However, their fortunes began to fail with the death of Elder Owen Lyons and the subsequent passing of his successor, Elder Sarah Lyons. And while the Brotherhood floundered after electing ineffectual elders in their place, Squire Maxson began to live up to his legacy. At the age of 12, he saved a squad that was escorting him from raiders, killing both. At 13, he took on a Deathclaw in a one-on-one matchup that left him disfigured. At 15, he eliminated a super mutant master named Shepard that had nearly reorganized the super mutant threats in DC. And at 16, he negotiated a peace with the Brotherhood outcasts, ending the civil war on the East Coast and reintegrating them into the Order. As a result, in 2283, Maxson was elected to the position of Elder, essentially speedrunning the Brotherhood ranks from Squire to Elder in the space of 6 years. By the time we meet Arthur Maxson again in Fallout 4 in the year 2287, the Brotherhood is potentially the most powerful it's ever been. The aftermath of their battle with the Enclave allowed Maxson to lay claim to a plethora of weapons, power armor, vertibirds, and the ability to create a flying airship fortress named the Pridwin. And it is with this airship that Maxson enters the Commonwealth to start a war with the Institute and eliminate their synth. Arthur Maxson at this point is a complex leader and seems to have a foot in both worlds, holding true to the original mission of the Brotherhood while espousing the humanitarian ideals of his tutors, Elder Owen Lyons and Sentinel Sarah Lyons. He ensures his forces treat Wastelanders with respect and decency, and orders them to acquire advanced tech via trade and medicine rather than direct conflict. Terminal entries also show Maxson's directive to the Lancer pilots of his vertibird fleet to prioritize protecting caravans from raiders and wasteland monsters, espousing that this was a tried and true method in the capital Wasteland that helped secure the hearts and minds of the people there. He is militant in his desire to destroy the Institute and their synths, but can be tempered with mercy in regards to Paladin Dance, a loyal friend who unknowingly was a synth. And since taking power, Arthur Maxson emulated the wishes of his noble ancestor Roger Maxson, normalizing the policy of admitting Wastelanders into the Brotherhood's order to bolster their numbers. There are 4 separate endings for Fallout 4 depending on which faction is backed by the player. However, I think we can fairly conclusively state that Arthur Maxson was successful in laying claim to the Commonwealth. As a key example, an article explaining the Brotherhood seen in the Fallout TV show reads as follows. Elder Maxson's reforms had wide-reaching implications. The Brotherhood finally embraced its nation-building role, which was already taken for granted on the East Coast, with initiates fighting and dying in the name of the Brotherhood, seen no longer as just an order, but as a country. Out west, the emergence of a new caste of clerics imbuing the Brotherhood's mission with religious overtone has also contributed to the evolution of the Brotherhood, from an elite order of warrior monks into a mass movement, relying not on a handful of troops in power armor, but mass forces of aspirants and initiates accompanying these troops to overcome any conceivable enemy. This resulted in the introduction of mass outside recruitment, previously only practiced by Elder Owen Lyons and Arthur Maxson. So, in somewhat of a role reversal, in 2296, the East Coast Brotherhood is the major force for the faction, given that the Elders on the West Coast lost their war against the NCR and went into hiding. The Commonwealth branch evidently monitors events across the entire Wasteland, as the escape of Wilsig and the Cold Fusion project from the Enclave was discovered by their forces. Elder Arthur Maxson sends his mobile fortress of Pridwin to the west coast to support their efforts. Quintus himself states he is carrying out the orders of Maxson directly, declaring in a speech that, "Our mission comes from the highest clerics in the Commonwealth. It is believed that a denizen of the Enclave has escaped." Terminal entries in Fallout 4 read that in 2281, the East Coast chapters had reported religious cults popping up that had started to worship Arthur Maxson as a god, something which he detested and desired to have put down. However, the California chapter seems to have dived headfirst into the religious experience of the Brotherhood. As such, given his control of the most powerful Brotherhood of Steel faction, as well as being the last descendant of the Maxson bloodline, and the fact that he is declared the supreme commander of the Brotherhood of Steel, Arthur Maxson is the last, but absolutely not the least, of the Maxson dynasty. And that was all the history we have on the royal family of the Wasteland, the Maxsons. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Please feel free to subscribe, but only if you want to. It's a free country.